Uwiteka Mana nziza, turagushimiye turaguhimbaje kuko uyu munsi wongeye ku buzima bwacu. Mwami mwiza, turagushimiye kuba dutangiye umwaka turi amahoro, ishimwe ni ryawe. Mwami mwiza rero turakwinginze ngo uduhere umugisha mu kazi kacu ka buri munsi, uduhere umugisha mu byo dukora, uduhere umugisha kuko dukomeza kurinda abirabura benshi. Turakwinginze ngo uturindire ibihugu byacu, dufashe muri byose, uturindire n'imiryango. Tusabiye tuyambaje mu izina rya Yesu Kristo. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Sister Yvonne, for leading us in a prayer. I would like to welcome everyone who just joined us. My name is Awod Ngwenya, and I'm from Zimbabwe, Harare. I'll be the moderator on for today's meeting. And also, we are live on Facebook. So for those who are on Facebook and who are hearing us, kindly write in the comment section on Facebook where you are, your name, and also whether a member or an ambassador of Alive Black People. Yes, I can see people are writing on the chat section here on Zoom, where they're joining us. We appreciate it. To start off the meeting, we're going to have our country representatives who are going to present their country, their weekly country reports. So we're going to start with our brother Joel K. Kendichi, who will be presenting on behalf of Malawi. Brother Joel, can you hear me? You can unmute yourself and present on behalf of Malawi.
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Yes, same as us, we can hear you clearly. You can go ahead and present the report.
Okay, I present the report from Malawi. Malawi, I love Black people, ambassadors report. From 1st January 2022 to 7th January 2022. On Saturday, 1st January 2022, we had an interactive class session with Tigre Wright and Nana Akwo Sensele. On 2nd January 2022, a link was shared to members to participate in Twitter space hosted by Sinclair Skinner, our co-founder, on highlight on Pan-African agenda for 2022. On 2nd January, members were encouraged to recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses. On 4th January, regular weekly report newsletter was shared, which highlight on 8 essential categories. 1, education, health, legal, finance, transportation, beauty, food, and accommodation. Members was also reminded to submit their article of publication. On 5th January, social media account was shared to groups. Members were encouraged to follow, like, share, and comment on platform. On 6th January, member ambassadors were encouraged to always attend our online Zoom event, which aim to build global network to help and protect Black people from racism and xenophobia. COVID-19 update in Malawi on 7th January 2022. Accumulative confirmed cases 79,882. New cases 677. Total death 2,407. 7 new. Accumulative test 4,999. 945. 253.23 new. COVID-19 vaccination. First dose AstraZeneca 1,998, 668. Second dose AstraZeneca 399, 568. Johnson & Johnson, 336,504. New cases, 3,440. First dose, Pfizer, 474. New cases, 42. Second dose for Pfizer was 3. Total full vaccination, 7,335, 555. New cases is 3,440. Report by Andrew Makombo, ambassador from Malawi. I am because we are.
Thank you so much, Brother Joe Kendichi, for presenting on behalf of our brother Andrew Magombo to present the Malawi report. I appreciate all of you. Happy New Year, everyone. I can see people are really excited in the comment section. They're wishing each other a prosperous New Year. As I love Black people, we want to achieve more and we want to work towards our goals, which is to protect Black people from racism and xenophobia globally. On next, in continuation with our country reports, I'm going to have Elijah Nyabuti to present on behalf of our sister Anna Karina from Mozambique case report. Elijah Nyabuti, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, you can continue and present the report for Mozambique. Then after that, we can continue and present your country's report, which is Kenya as well.
Yes, on behalf of Anna Karina, the report is dated 27 December 2020. It is dated 1st January 2022 to 8th January 2022. The country weekly activities to protect Black people from racism and xenophobia. Mozambique is a state alert against xenophobic attacks against Mozambican migrants. As we are in festive season, many African migrants, including Mozambican, returns home for holiday. So some extra care measures and border must be taken into account. Since South Africa alerted the world about new CSRS COVID-2 variant Omicron, the neighboring countries were called to take protective measures, especially in the borders. In Mozambique, more cases of new variant Omicron were detected since then, and the number of infections were increasing, but the situation is considered stable. Because of the geographical proximity in South Africa and Mozambique, some extra protective precaution must be adopted. During the festive season, measures of protection, prevention, and social distancing were adopted, especially at the borders where there is a great flood of people. So in the group, the weekly task was shared. The people were encouraged to register to recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses. Announcements were made to call members to volunteer as ambassadors. The weekly task was shared, and in the group, the members were given the newsletter, which highlights on our 8 essential categories, which is health, education, legal, finance, beauty, and transportation, and many more. So the COVID-19 update in Mozambique, the report is as from 31st December 2021. The track trace test was 6,851,000.
Sorry, Elijah Nyabuti, I think you're facing network challenges. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right.
The tested positive were 189,080. Tested negative were 909,842. The deaths were 2,006. Recoveries were 156,570. The quarantined were 470.
Hello, Brother Elijah. Are you done with the reports?
Continuing to the Kenya report. Can I proceed?
Yes, you can proceed with the Kenya report, but you are breaking up. Can you try to proceed? And if you can't, I can do the report.
Yeah, this is the Kenya report, which is dated 2nd January 2022 to 8th January 2022. So the country activities, in the last Zoom meeting, we had an interactive class session with Nana Akua, Sinclair, and Dr. Kyrene, members and ambassadors. Members were encouraged to recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses. Regular and weekly newsletter was shared, which highlights on our 8 essential categories, which is education, legal, health, finance, transportation, beauty, food, accommodation, where members were told to submit and their articles for publication. Social media accounts were shared to the group where members were encouraged to follow, like, comment in all platforms. Members and ambassadors were encouraged to always attend the online event, which aims on building a global network to help and protect people from racism and xenophobia. On 7th January, which was yesterday, members and country spokespersons were asked to prepare and submit their weekly reports. The Kenya COVID-19 updates is as from 7th January 2022, which was yesterday. The total confirmed cases were 309,130. The cumulative fatalities were 5,425. The recoveries were 262,133. The cumulative tests were 3,085,450. The report was prepared by me, Elijah Nyabish from Kenya. I am because we are.
I am because thank you so much, Brother Elijah, for presenting the report. I appreciate that. On next, we're going to have our guest speaker for today is from Zambia, southern part of Africa, and his name is Mr. Lisulo Mohau. Mr. Lisulo Mohau, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm getting you. Are you able to get me, sir?
Yes, I can get you. Well, say you can continue and present your speech for today's meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. I welcome you to this new year. I love Black people. For the first time to present this speech. I thank you all. Since early November, a full-scale humanitarian crisis has been unfolding in Ethiopia, Tigre region. More than 46,000 people have sought refuge in neighboring Sudan, and another 1.7 million have been displaced from their homes, but remain inside the region. The vast majority are undertaking perilous journeys to reach safety, carrying just a few of their belongings with them. Are you getting me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
We can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
When did the crisis in the Tigre region start? The armed conflict broke out on November 4, 2020, between the federal government and the regional forces, driving thousands of people to flee their homes. More than half of them women and children. Most people traveled with nothing, and many without adequate shelter. More than 5.5 million people are threatened by hunger. People in the region have endured months of conflict with limited assistance available, leading to a significant escalation in humanitarian needs. The security situation remains volatile, especially in rural areas, constraining humanitarian actors on the ground. Basic services have gradually resumed in parts of Tigray. However, electricity and banking services remain intermittent. Who is most affected by the crisis in the Tigray region in Ethiopia? The Tigre region in northern Ethiopia is home to approximately 6.5 million people. The majority of them are farmers who were at the peak of the harvest season. When the conflict sparked, over the past month, they have been forced to cross the border to Sudan to escape violence, and another 1.7 million people have been displaced inside the country. Before the conflict erupted in Tigre region in November 2020, there were 96,223 Eritrean refugees being sheltered in 4 refugee camps in the Tigre region. As of May 2021, a total of 8,359 at-risk Eritrean refugees have been relocated to Mayani and Adi, Harushi, safer camps in the southern region, where they are being provided with emergency shelter, core relief items, and upon arrival. Where are the Ethiopian refugees fleeing to? Is the question that we must ask ourselves. At the onset of the crisis, hundreds of Ethiopians were crossing the Sudanese border on a daily basis, mainly through Hamadite border in Kasara state, with new arrivals far outspacing infrastructure needs. For example, the transit center at the Hamadite had the capacity to host just 300 refugees and received more than 20,000 people. You can imagine. With the help of the Sudanese government, more than 18,000 Ethiopians are now being sheltered in Tunad settlement, nearly 1,200 of whom are separated or unaccompanied children. What are the major challenges refugees face? Lack of access to basic services and humanitarian, and some of the top priorities in Tigre region, with many of rural areas inaccessible and several locations not reachable for several weeks at a time. Armed conflict and arbitrary denial of access of armed forces remains the main access impediment. Additionally, many people in Tigre remain cut off from communication and electricity, which has impeded their access to health services and water. In conclusion, as I love Black people, we call upon all the parties involved in the escalation to quickly find a peaceful solution for the betterment of the people of Ethiopia and its neighboring regions. The release of journalists, war and political prisoners, recently by Prime Minister Abiy during Christmas amnesty, is indeed a significant step in the right direction. I appeal to the authority behind the famous I Love Black People movement to stamp its footprint in Ethiopia so that our brothers and sisters can enjoy peace, not as perceived by the politicians, but as God's ordained natural gift to the Black people and the entire
Niko
humanity.
karibu na kitu na present.
The presenter is Mr. Muhau, Zanda spokesperson. I am because we are. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muhau, for giving us an insight of what's happening in Ethiopia. The Love Black people, and as members, we would like to work together as a team on how best we can tackle this situation. And also, we're going to share the links for our Twitter space during the week. So everyone, even if you are not on Twitter, you can just listen to the spaces. You are free to join. On next, you are going to have Elijah Nyabuti with another report. Elijah Nyabuti, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, so you can go on and present your speech.
Okay. What is happening in Somalia? That is a question. In Somalia, an electoral impasse raises via fear of full-blown conflict. In Somalia, a national election was scheduled to be held on February 8th, but not only did the election not take place. A power vacuum was created and violence followed. Experts are warning that the country may now slip back into full-blown civil war if the crisis is not resolved. On February 23rd, a suicide bomber was exploded his vest, killing at least 2 people when police stopped him at the entry of the police station in the capital, Mogadishu. It has not yet been confirmed whether the attack was directly related to the election crisis. Political impasse. The main reason for Somalia stalled election were disagreement between the Central Federation government and the leaders of 5 semi-autonomous regions on the ground rules of holding an election. The country had a clan-based electoral model where Somalis don't go to the polls to vote. Instead, there is an indirect system where clan elders choose special delegates and they pick the country lawmakers. Those lawmakers then choose the president. But last year in February, President Mohamed Abdullah Mohamed, aka Famajo, signed a new bill that allowed regular citizens to vote in elections. It was a move that was met with criticism from the opposition. They said the new system, one person, one vote, would require an extension of Abdullah's term. This would have been the first time that Somali civilians could directly vote since the Somali civil war broke out in 1991. After a series of meetings between the central government and the regional leaders, a new electoral framework was tabled. In essence, it was an updated version of the indirect election system. The implementation phase of the framework, however, brought a new hurdle. This included the Federation Election Implementation Team and how parliamentary seats will be allocated, particularly in the Gedo district of Jubaland state that borders with Kenya. President Abdullah decided to replace District Commissioner in Gedo, appointed by Jubaland President Sheikh Ahmed Mohammed Islam Madobe. Mogadishu claimed the appointment of Madobe was a result of Kenya intervening in Somali's international affairs through Jubaland, where election day arrived with no clear agreement and the incumbent President Abdullahi term ended, but he refused to leave. The country fell into a political dreadlock. The opposition say they won't recognize him as a president anymore, but there is also no agreement for a new election in sight. Fragile security. The security situation in Somalia is already fragile with Al-Shabaab's frequent attacks. They also threatened to attack the polls during the elections. Following the stalled elections, an alliance of Somali opposition leader called for anti-government protests despite of a government ban on demonstration due to the pandemic. An opposition candidate, Abdurrahman Abdishakur, who called for the rallies, claimed Famajo manipulated the elections, aiming to stay in power indefinitely. But the protest reportedly took a violent turn after the opposition refused police protection amid risk of Al-Shabaab disruption. Last week on Friday, the gunshot targeted a hotel where 2 opposition figures were staying. One of them was Famajo's former deputy who said it was an assassination attempt by the president. At least 5 people were killed in the protest and more than a dozen people were wounded in the protest violence. Most of them were civilians. That is what is happening in Somalia. I am Elijah Nyabuti from Kenya. I am because we are.
Thank you so much, Brother Elijah Nyabuti, for giving us a speech on what's happening in Somalia. Is I love Black people. We need to come up with ideas and use this tool, which is technology, to fight for other fellow people who are facing challenges. Yeah, I think Elijah wasn't on mute. So I was saying, I think as I love Black people members, we need to put our heads together and see the solutions in order to help our fellow brothers and sisters in different countries to use this tool which we have, which is technology. So we need to come up with ideas and protect each other globally. Those who are on Facebook kindly write in the comment section like where you are joining us from, and we really appreciate you joining us through Facebook. And also we encourage everyone here to invite their friends to join us, our WhatsApp group. I've shared the link in the chat section for everyone to join that group. And those new people who are here, kindly follow that link which I've shared in the chat room so that you can be onboarded to our Pan-African class, which is led by Dr. Tigre Wright, a professor at the seat of New York University in the United States. So you are all free to join it, and also you will receive a free certificate of participation at the end of the lectures. I can see that you are only 31 on this room. On next, we are going to have we are going to have Nana Akua for the healthcare lecture, but please, can you just invite your friends and family so that they can join through this link, so that they can hear more about natural health and herbs from Nana Akua. So let's go. I'm going to share the link of the Zoom meeting in the chat section so that you can take just like 2 minutes of inviting your friends and family to learn more about healthcare for free. So there go the link. I've shared it in the chat room. So please, can you go ahead and invite? Okay, let me just send it now. So there is the link. Let's invite our friends and family so that they can join us for free. I can see people are joining. Yeah, so let's invite our friends and family to learn more about the healthcare lecture, which is coming soon just now. In less than 5 minutes, we'll be starting the health lecture. But for now, please, let's invite our friends and families to join through. As I said earlier, we only have 32 participants. So please, can you invite our friends and family members to join us? Yeah, so for those who do have questions on how, as the movement, who are moving forward, catch us during the week. We'll be sharing the link to our live Twitter spaces, whereby we have discussions. And also, if you want to have a chance to speak, you can join those spaces. And it's not a debate space, but people will be sharing ideas. Like last week, for example, our co-founder Sinclair hosted a Twitter space with the 2 general topics. The first topic was Pan-African agendas of 2022. People were sharing their agendas as a Pan-Africanist for 2022. And I can see in this chat room, in this Zoom meeting, we have those people who joined the Twitter space. It was informative and people really shared their ideas. And also yesterday, we had another Twitter space with our host, Sinclair Skinner. Also, he was presenting all the Pan-Africanists who support US reparations for descendants of freedmen. People were sharing their ideas in support of the reparations in the US. And everyone who joined us can just mention that they did have an informative and fruitful discussion with the co-founder. So on next, we're going to have our healthcare lecture with Nana Akua. Nana Akua, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you so much for joining us for the second meeting for 2022.
Okay, you're welcome. I see my daughter's name is still up here. Okay.
Yes.
I'm glad you recognized it was me. I'm like, wait a minute. And y'all know I don't know how to change it. So I'm a mirror today. So, hey, Yvonne. How are you doing, Award? So we didn't have Mr. Mapindera today?
No, we didn't have Mr. Mapondera today, but we had two speakers, one from Zambia and one from Kenya, who presented
awesome.
on what's going on in Ethiopia and Somalia, respectively.
Awesome. Okay, that's great. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. We are starting our. Oh, is Mama Ayo on here? Yay! I see someone I know. My eye just happened to catch it. Let me scroll through these names since y'all don't be showing me y'all's faces. Let me get back on that. How about that? How about y'all turn your cameras on and let me see you? Okay, no takers yet. Okay, I see Gideon, Fearless Warrior. I see Muha. Okay, thank you for you all that indulged me and gave me a wave. Oh, wait. I just scrolled to the second page. Some other people. Hey, Mama Ayo. Somebody else. Chris. Okay, awesome. Mark. Oh, yay. Thank you all. I appreciate you. I love to see beautiful Black faces. I know that we're doing other things and you don't always want to show yourselves or you're not really prepared to be in front of people. Neither am I. I just pulled my bonnet off my head. Okay, so I act like I'm being seen as well. Got my food here that I'm trying to eat. It just ain't quite worked out smoothly today. Hey, sis, look, you doing your hair. You did the same thing. We all in the same boat. Look, I walk around the house with my bonnet on always. Anywho, I still think I have long hair. For you who all don't know, I cut 25 inches of my locks off summer before last. So I used to have really long hair. And that was even my second or third set of locks. But anyway, I think I still have long hair. So I still kind of keep it up. But anyway, thank you all for joining us. This is our new cycle of the Pan-African Healthcare class. We separated into 4 sets or 4 parts. And so today is sort of the first stage where we're talking about holistic principles and some basic nutrition facts and things of that nature. So I will share some documents. If you're in the WhatsApp group, great, because what we do usually each day of the week is give some reading assignments, but of course, you're always welcome to join us on the class. You don't have to be in a WhatsApp group. You just get the documents beforehand. And you can kind of read over it before our Saturday class. So it's not necessary. At the end also though, if there are handouts that you want copies of, I always put my email and you can, request the And I'll apologize because if you requested them last week, I did not send them. I know I have probably at least 6 or 7 email requests for handouts I didn't get to last week, but I will send those. Sometimes I just get behind and there are always so many things to do that I don't always get to everything, but I always remember and I keep them as unread. So I'll go back and make sure that I send those to you. So if you aren't a part of the WhatsApp group and you want anything that we discussed today, I'll gladly send that to you. Okay, so let me pull up our handouts. So what I want to just talk about, I'm a holistic healer. I was trained as a naturopathic doctor. However, I live in the state of Maryland here in the US, and they've changed laws. So I can no longer operate as a doctor. Can't call myself a doctor. Here in Maryland, they only consider doctors to be medical doctors. Of all the different types of doctors that exist in the world, Maryland's law requires that you be a medical doctor. So I've changed some things in terms of how I do things and what I call myself. But as a self-determined person who has renamed herself decades ago, I don't so much take kindly to people telling me what I can call myself. So, but I am who I am. So I go by Nana Akua. People who've known me from years ago know me as Dr. Akua. But of course, legally, I'm not allowed to say that. But if just for your frame of reference, I'm simply mentioning that. And I also want to say that the information I share is more so for educational purposes, of course, so I can't recommend a particular course of treatment or action, but this is more so for you to know what nutrients are, you know, what different herbs traditionally do and how they've been traditionally used to heal our people. Because ultimately, my goal as a holistic healer is to educate our people to take back our power, you know, to know your bodies, your symptoms, what's normal for you, when there is a change, when there is something to kind of be alarmed about, and then to kind of have some of the foundational information as to what to do about it. You know, we even go over a personal care plan later in the series so that you can identify certain conditions where you would then call for help. Or perhaps go to a clinic or emergency room or, you know, you're a primary care person. So we discuss all of these things, and the goal is for you to just have information, basic information on how to maintain health, how to regain health, how to use all these wonderful herbs and plants that God has given us. So that is the purpose. So we'll start today just by highlighting what it is to do holistic medicine. And so as a holistic, you know, person, I'm not the one that's going to talk about what prescription drugs are used for what conditions. We don't get into, you know, how to diagnose or treat a particular condition. I strictly deal with, excuse me, I strictly deal with natural occurring substances, whether it's foods, whether it's herbs, whether it's essential oils, whether it's homeopathic remedies, so on and so forth. And so let me just start out by talking about what it is to be a holistic, or what holistic healing is. Let me pull up my, excuse me, because I really like having images and pictures. I think it just helps to restore, I gotta restore my pages here, but it helps to give sort of an image or imagery to what we're talking about. So let me pull up the documents that I'm teaching from today. My computer's asking me to restore something, so I feel like it is delaying me in some way here. Okay, so let me share the screen. Okay, and so Award, if you can confirm that you see the kind of picture graph or word graph here with the holistic concepts on it?
Yes, we can see that.
Awesome. Okay, so I pulled this information and created this document just so that it would be very clear what holistic medicine is. And you see from the word diagram here, there are many concepts that may be involved, but basically holistic medicine is a form of healing that considers the whole or entire or complete person. We're talking mind, body, spirit, and they've even included emotions here. And I like that because we have a whole section where we'll talk about emotional health. We'll talk about flower essences that heal the emotions. But most times we hear mind, body, and spirit, and we'll kind of include emotions somewhere in between mind and spirit. But basically, this is a concept that basically pulls these components together to achieve and promote optimal health and wellness, right? And so there are other variations of it. The concept of holistic wellness, again, just taking the entire person's health into perspective and making sure that you're not just addressing just physical symptoms or just the physical characteristics or aspects, but that you're also addressing the mental health needs and spiritual needs of an individual. I also want to point out, I want to go down to, oh, did I take that other diagram off? So there's another diagram that I had that gave all of these different words that we use for holistic healing. I may have removed that one. But you've heard alternative medicine or alternative healing. You've heard complementary medicine, naturopathic, holistic. All of these are usually used interchangeably, right? So anytime that we're talking about using natural healing modalities, we're talking about the same thing. So some people may refer to it as holistic, some will say complementary. Some people will say alternative. That's not my favorite term. I prefer traditional, quite honestly, because we know that this is what was first used. We know that that was, that's the oldest. This predates everything, right? And so I want to point out here just pretty much what the driving principles are behind holistic healing, okay? So holistic healing, basically this is an optimal health goal. So we know that the focus is making sure that the overall well-being of the person is considered, right? We know that the healing power of love is one of the main components. This is where the practitioner strives to meet the person with love, with grace, with kindness, with acceptance. But first, having a healer that is coming from a place of love. You always want that. You want a practitioner that's dealing with you as a whole person, not picking apart the symptoms and just certain pieces, but addressing all of those areas that we've already discussed, the mind, the body, and the spirit. We focus on prevention and treatment, not just treating a symptom, but the underlying cause of a thing, a disease or a disorder, and basically trying to keep it from happening again, not just throwing, pills at it, not just saying, okay, did this alleviate the symptoms? You want someone that's going to consider all of these things to create a plan that will not allow this to reoccur. It also focuses on the innate healing power, right? We all have an innate power to heal ourselves. We are the master of our fate, our healing, our bodies, our minds, our spirit. And so this is basically focusing, putting that focus on you, allowing you to evoke your own personal healing powers, right? Because you are going to the practitioner and you're armed with the information to give to the practitioner, to the healer, to the doctor, to assist you in that healing process. So always hold on to your power. A lot of times we feel very powerless when we're not well. I usually don't use the word sick, but when we're not well or when we're out of balance or when we, are not at our best, we feel usually powerless, we feel weak, we feel like we're out of control. first take back your control, your power, and know that you have those pieces of information to give to your practitioner to help you in your healing process. The integration of healing systems. Know that there are several processes, different components that may be employed to bring you back to wellness. For some people, it may be a prescription drug or a surgical procedure. It may be a combination of herbs and diet and some sort of procedure. But know that a whole integration of these things can exist. It doesn't have to be just one way. Everyone is not going to take to certain prescriptions, while some people may not take to or get the results they need with certain herbs. So there may be, a combination of things. But we always want to try what's natural, what's holistic, and what will have the least negative effects or results. You want someone who's focusing on relationship-centered care. You want a practitioner that cares what you say. You want them to listen to you, to get those pieces of information that you have so that they can assist. So you want them to really care about you and your thoughts, your opinions, your plans. You should always go into a situation and say, well, my goal is this, Doc. Or what I hope to do is this, or what I need is this. And you want a person that's going to listen to that. Individuality, everyone is different. There are 10 people that have the same condition, but their course of treatment will be different. Even if you're doing it all naturally with herbs, not all 10 people will thrive with the same herb combination. Teaching by example. You always want a practitioner that's going to educate you, teach you, be vested in you being well and having the information that you need. So they're going to serve as a teacher as well as a healer. And then learning opportunities. There are all kinds of experiences that we will face in the world: birth, joy, suffering, pain, dying. These are learning opportunities, and we should treat them as such. They can have, very negative or very emotionally impactful results, but we have to always learn the lesson. We always have to take whatever opportunity we have to learn from something so that we can progress in our healing. We don't want to always end up at the same situation if we meet a circumstance again. We want to be ahead of it. So this handout just gives some types of, and again, not my favorite, but I pulled this from the internet. I liked the listing here that it had. There was another one that I had that I thought was a little better. But this just lists some of the said holistic or alternative or complementary therapies. We know that these might include things like folk medicine, herbal medicine, homeopathy, chiropractic, acupuncture, naturopathy, massage, music therapy, exercise therapy, hydrotherapy with warm soaks and other water therapies, acupuncture. Oh, I think I said that one already. Acupressure, different kinds of touch therapies, shiatsu massage, things of that nature. So there are a number of holistic healing modalities that exist. I muted myself and then I couldn't unmute myself. So I always, as you may know, if you've listened in before, I always like to include and point out this picture of the traditional healer here, the Sangoma, because as we talk about different herbs in this class, some of the documented or written information, not everyone will be able to access these herbs depending on what part of the world that you're in. So I always like to highlight the importance of traditional healers, because depending on where you are, actually wherever you are in the world, you'll always be able to go to your local traditional healer and get access to different local herbs that will heal the body, mind, and spirit. So, and in our various cultures, we may have some negative connotations about traditional healers. There have been different names and words that have been used, but I implore you to open your mind and know that this is the type of person that knows the local plants and herbs and trees and shrubs that will heal you. So let's embrace the Sangoma and all traditional healers, right? So I want to skip past this section here for the most part, but I want to just highlight some other holistic principles. And in the principles we mentioned, this was in there, but I like how this handout kind of details this a little more succinctly. I am responsible for my own health and well-being. That's a primary function there that's very important. All people have innate healing powers. Another powerful, powerful statement. The patient is a person, not a disease. You are not cancer. You are not diabetes. You are not COVID. You know, you are still a person that is exhibiting some symptoms or a certain condition or dis-ease. And treatment is finding and fixing the cause of the condition, not just alleviating the symptoms, okay? So those are very important as you are on your healing journey, as you're seeking professional help from a healer. These are things that you want to remember for yourself, and then to share that this is, you know, what your mindset is, so that you find the right person to assist you. I'd like to skip down, because what we also discuss in this section is sort of really basic information on what are nutrients. So this is sort of a very brief nutrition 101, so to speak, right? So let's just talk about what nutrients are. Nutrients are substances found in food that provide nourishment to our bodies, okay? There are 6 main types of nutrients. There are carbohydrates, there are fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water, okay? So we'll discuss in detail vitamins and minerals, but let me talk, because I don't think I have a handout about water. Let's talk about water. Water, we know, is completely life-sustaining, life-giving, it's cleansing, it's purifying. It can do so much. It's vital to all forms of life. We know that the earth itself is 2/3 water. We know that our bodies are about 2/3 water. So we know that it's essential. If you are into the routine or habit of not drinking enough water, or if you're with a practitioner that doesn't emphasize the importance of water, you should probably find another healer. You want someone who knows the importance of water. And a basic equation for how much water to drink is half your weight in ounces, okay? Half your weight in ounces. And so if someone, for example, is 160 pounds, then you want to have at least 80 ounces of water spread throughout the day. We don't want to consume large quantities of water at a time, because of course the body can't easily absorb a lot of water at once. So you also want to spread it out over the hours of the day that you're awake. So usually with whatever, so if that 80 ounces of water, you want to then divide it maybe by 8, and that's how much you drink every couple of hours. So if every 2 hours you take in 10 ounces of water, you'll get your 80 ounces of water a day, okay? But you want it spread out. And the best, purest, cleanest water that you can find is going to be the best. We are not all privy to my ideal water. For example, I do distilled. I was trying to say alkaline though. I either go between alkaline water or distilled water. But if you can only get purified water or reverse osmosis water, spring water, well water, But as best, as clean, as pure water that you can find, that's what you want. And you want to consume it throughout the day. And you want to make sure you get adequate water so that the body can properly flush and cleanse and heal itself. We know that, I think the next page has, okay. So we know that different vitamins and minerals do different things in the body. This chart here is just something, again, I love kind of picture charts that give a good demonstration with pictures or images or words to kind of show the lesson. This is not, some of the smaller print is not the easiest to read, but if you have the handout, this is a good reference for later on for you to just kind of quickly go through and say, oh, this is, you know, a easy way to point out what foods are high in vitamin C. So you can very quickly see the tomato and the orange and the lemon and the grapes, right? So this chart kind of gives you a quicker reference than some of the other ones we'll talk about. This chart here on protein-rich foods, I put here because a lot of people think that only proteins can be obtained through meat or flesh. So this handout that I came across some years ago gives you other options for protein. Proteins are found in many, many foods. So we know that it's not just found in meats. So we know that there are different nuts and seeds and grains and other plant-based foods that are rich in protein. Because the vegetarian argument becomes a really big one, again, this is another chart about proteins, and it gives sort of a comparison between plant-based proteins and meat or dairy-based proteins. So we know that there are certain plant-based foods like spirulina and chlorella and hemp seeds and pumpkin seeds that have just as much or more protein per serving as chicken and beef and tuna and eggs. Okay, so again, something to just have as a reference. And let's go down and get into a really kind of basic abbreviated version of proteins and carbs and fats. So we know that proteins are found, and again, this is found from a very mainstream source. I think I got this from, yeah, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, right? So we know that they are not necessarily going to focus on the plant-based sources for these things. So, you know, the first line is found in beef, pork, chicken, right? But again, we've already laid the foundation that there are many plant-based options for proteins, right? But as is read here, found in beef, pork, chicken, game, wild meats, seafood, eggs, soybeans, and other legumes, proteins provide the body with amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, which are needed for growth, development, and repair and maintenance of body tissues, right? But again, we know that there are other sources for protein, but proteins are essential. This is considered an essential macronutrient. This provides structure for muscle and bone. It repairs tissues when damaged and helps the immune cells fight inflammation and infection. So we know that protein is vital. Carbohydrates. We know that carbohydrates, the main role is to provide energy and fuel to the body, akin to how gasoline fuels a car or a vehicle, right? So these are foods that are more notably known to have carbohydrates: corn, beans, plantains, rice, potatoes, tortillas, other root vegetables like yucca, breads, things like that. But of course, we know that carbohydrates are also found in fruits and vegetables as well. But these basically provide the body with the energy that it needs to carry out different functions. These things may be walking, talking, running, moving, lifting heavy objects, but also fuel is, as we know, is needed to grow and is especially important for pregnant women and children and things of that nature. So carbs are very important. Now, folk who are usually weight conscious or interested in losing weight, a lot of times there's a misunderstanding about carbohydrates, but know that carbohydrates are essential to your nutritional plan. It is a macronutrient. It is essential for your body. The issue will be choosing the right types of carbohydrates. And so in, I think, lesson week 3, we will go over carbohydrates in a little more detail when we talk about the glycemic index. And this is how you will be able to choose or make better choices as to what carbs to take in. But know that carbohydrates are not all treated equally. They are not all the same, but carbs as a whole are essential and they are necessary. Same thing with fats. Fat also gets a bad rap, right? But we know that dietary fat found in different oils like coconut, nuts, milk, cheese, meat, things like that, they provide structure to cells, right? And they cushion membranes to help prevent damage. So oils and fats are needed to absorb fat-soluble vitamins. They're good for different functionings of the body. It's given the example here of vitamin A, for example, that we know is important for healthy eyes and lungs. So fats are essential. It's a matter of the right types of fats. And I think, I don't know if I put it in this handout. I had a really quick, and yeah, it's not in here. But choosing the right fats or oils is always going to be good. And so in the chart, we'll get to that. There's so much information. I always have to try to scroll through and remember what I included here. But this is just sort of an introductory. This is just for you to get an idea of what nutrients are and how to find them. So moving on to vitamins and minerals, we know that vitamins aid in production of energy, wound healing, bone formation, boosting the immune system, things of that nature. We know that minerals help maintain cardiovascular health, and they also provide structure to your skeleton, okay? And so the charts that I've included give you a very detailed look at the different vitamins, what they do in the body, where to find them, and how much is typically recommended, okay? So this, again, is also for your reference. Some are more common than others. Most people know, say, vitamin C. Most people have maybe memorized a little bit about calcium and magnesium. But there are some other vitamins and minerals that are maybe not as common. I would suggest that you kind of learn more about those. As we age, certain minerals, for example, become more important because the body just sort of naturally gets depleted of it. So certain things like the calcium and magnesium, most people kind of get an understanding. But during these times, cold and flu season, during this whole pandemic, things like zinc, vitamin D, these are things that maybe we need to focus a little more on. And I'm scrolling down to zinc, if I can get to it, right? So it may be a good idea to get a little more familiar with the mineral zinc, for example. So we know that zinc is used for growth and development, immune function, nervous system function, protein formation, reproduction, taste and smell, and wound healing, right? And so where you find zinc: beans and peas, beef, dairy products, fortified cereals, nuts, poultry, seafoods like clams, crabs, lobsters, oysters, and also in whole grains, right? So zinc we know is important, but also there are other sources, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, things of that nature. So as important as it is to know what foods that you can find certain vitamins and minerals in, I included this chart that I compiled some years ago, where this gives you the vitamin and mineral guide for different herbs. So if you, for example, are more plant-based, and especially some of the food sources for things like calcium or vitamin D and things like that that are usually animal based, you can use this herbal chart to learn what herbs are naturally high and contain different vitamins and minerals. So we were just talking about vitamin D, for example. So if you're not a dairy person, for example, it's good to know that you can also find vitamin D in alfalfa, in chickweed, eyebright, fenugreek, oat straw, mullein, sarsaparilla, thyme, red raspberry, rose, and then we just talked about zinc. So let's scroll down and find zinc. So a lot of options for zinc: echinacea, garlic, dandelion, cayenne, chaparral, burdock, horsetail, sarsaparilla, red clover, green leafy vegetables, nuts, seeds. I mentioned that, pumpkin seeds in particular. So it's good to know the herb or plant sources of a lot of the vitamins and minerals as well. Iron becomes a big one for people who are anemic, or who, if you notice, you are craving ice, or you get really winded easily and you just feel like, oh, you're just out of shape or something like that. And if you have some, other symptoms and you discover that your iron is low, if you're not, because in the food component, most times you'll only hear about organ meats and other meats as a source of iron. Well, here is a whole list of herbs that are high in iron: sarsaparilla, ginseng, golden seal, burdock, fenugreek, yellow dock, parsley, horehound, red raspberry. So there are a lot of options for increasing your iron with herbs if you can achieve it through foods based on a restrictive diet that you may be following. So these are just as important as the initial charts. They kind of give you more of the food options, especially if you're a tea drinker. I really, really suggest not just consuming your regular green tea is fine, but your regular white or black teas. A lot of folk in the various African countries and the Caribbean, it's standard to kind of start your day with hot tea, or end your evening with hot tea, but usually it's going to be that Lipton tea, right? So what I suggest is find what herbs would benefit you, right? And use those herbal teas as your morning or after dinner tea, so that it can be of benefit to you. So if you know that you need to boost your vitamin C, consider, some elderberry tea, or some horehound tea, or some nettle tea. If you're having sinus problems, or sinus problems, nettle is excellent for that. Horsetail is great for that. Horehound is great for that. If you are prone to inflammation or bone issues or joint issues or things like that, then you would do things like the alfalfa or corn silk, and so many others. I just drew a blank. Some of these herbs that are high in calcium and magnesium, you would, do those herbs as your teas, rather than just your black and white teas. So this handout, I think, will be very helpful for that reason. I'd also like to highlight some of the types of diets. So we talked about carbs, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, water. Okay, so it's also important to know that there are different types of diets that you can follow. Okay. Nicole mixes black and green tea. Yeah, Nicole, you and the rest of the world is deficient in vitamin D these days. I think it has something to do with the soil. I mean, it has to be. It's just that well, maybe our continental brothers and sisters are not deficient in D, but most of us here, you know, stateside, we are the vitamin D deficient. And so, yes, following these herbs, suggestions that naturally contain vitamin D, maybe add that into your mix. Well, yeah, a lot of people are coming up. So you asked specifically, okay, it's good to now know, but now you know a lot of herbs that will supply you some vitamin D. Okay, Mama Ayo, I'm gonna put my email here so you can get the handout. I don't know which is most essential for human growth and development. I think that they all are. I don't know if there's a right answer for that in terms of which are essential. They're all essential. They're all considered essential. We need them all. I think probably a good way to know for an individual is based on what your lifestyle, your environment, like where you live, what part of the world you live in, if it's prone to certain types of environments that maybe don't allow for the easy absorption or obtaining of certain nutrients, you may have to highlight those that are not typically in your diet or in the soil based on where you live. If it's a area where you're doing more root vegetables and not a lot of green, leafy green vegetables, then you would maybe focus on those nutrients that, you know, will give you more of the minerals that maybe you would lack if you're not doing a lot of leafy green vegetables. You know, that's just what comes to mind in terms of how to answer that question. Yeah, and I know, and I don't think you've been on before, Mama Ayo, but you know, I've highlighted you before, and I don't know if you're still on or not. You're not in the current box that I can see with these handouts up, but I've referenced you specifically before in terms of, I was explaining that there are people that are breathologists and teach about conscious breathing and breath work. And so, yes, I would say oxygen is definitely an essential nutrient. I think because, you know, just like breath is one of those things that is both conscious and unconscious. Thank God we don't have to think about it. But yes, of course, we know the many, many benefits when we do consciously breathe and put effort into increasing and circulating the oxygen in the body for sure. So yeah, let me put in Nana Akua 1@gmail.com is my email. And so definitely, if you need the handouts, then you can certainly email me and I'll send those to you. So let me just go through the remaining handouts. So when we're trying to learn about what our bodies need, different times of the year are also good times to fast and cleanse and detox. Week 4 talks about that specifically. But as we learn about how to include certain nutrients into the body and things of that nature, we may also just naturally look to different types of healing diets. So this handout kind of focuses on, not all, but some of the different dietary changes that one may implement, right? So we know that based on, you know, what your challenges are, what your normal lifestyle is, you know, we make those decisions based on those things, because there's no cookie cutter, you know, way to do it. There's no one right way, not one way that's right for everyone. So as suggested here, a good place to start is just simply observing certain things. Drinking plenty of good quality water instead of sugary sodas. I'll even say rather than sugary juices as well. Alkaline water is best. I do agree with that. I go between that and distilled water. But yes, what you drink is as important as what you eat. So sometimes we focus too much on one and not the other. So making sure that you get good quality water. And let me just say, one of the best things about fluids or liquids is not only what you're drinking, but also when you drink it. The best suggestion that I have learned with regard to this is to not sit down with a full plate of food and then a huge glass of whatever liquid. So even if it is water, right? You want to limit the amount of liquids you consume while eating to 4 ounces, okay? If you drink too much with your solid foods, it interferes with digestion. Your body, your stomach already naturally has different digestive juices, so to speak, that help digest food. Too much other liquids and fluids that you put into the body with your meal will interfere in digestion. Okay, so another thing, if you can limit or drastically reduce the amount of meats or flesh or dairy that you consume, and sugar. I mentioned earlier when I was talking about proteins that people focus so much on a vegetarian diet or a regular, meat-based diet. That is important, but not everyone will become vegetarian. But one thing that, whether you consume meat or whether you're strictly plant-based, one thing that we all have to do is limit or strictly cut out or restrict, I say, sugar. Because some of the most disciplined vegetarians or vegans even still consume too much sugar. Okay, so that's a good place to start. Even if you've not decided whether you want to go completely plant-based or whether you're fine with just restricting certain meats, or you're still going to eat whatever meats. What you can and should do is really restrict your sugar intake. And also another way to include more plants and more fruits and vegetables in your diet is to consider juicing. Now, I know these days everyone is into smoothies. I'm kind of old school in terms of the holistic approach with this. I'm not a proponent of just mixing any and every kind of fruit and vegetable together into a smoothie. People make the argument that it's better than not getting the vegetables at all. However, there's a such thing as called proper food combining. And so not all foods go together. And most fruits and vegetables do not combine well for proper digestion, okay? And so those who have been into this a long time generally do juicing. Not that you should just lose all the pulp and the whole foods or fiber from the foods, but it's a good way to kind of be a little more true to the proper combining of foods. Focusing on a vegetable juice meal or a fruit juice meal. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit as well. So some diet choices that one may choose: raw food diet. This is a diet where you don't heat your foods past, I think it's maybe 115 degrees maybe, but pretty much everything is raw in its natural state. And of course, this is all plant-based. So we're talking about dehydrated foods, marinated or foods, low temperature foods or soups that are maybe made through a food processor that technically has, gotten heated a little bit, but not beyond that standard degrees. But this is so that the foods contain the natural enzymes, right? So in this case, supporters of this say, this addresses migraine headaches, bloating, assists with weight loss, and improves your energy. But if you know that you overconsume cooked dead foods, right? And you know you're not getting enough nutrients from your foods, raw food diet, even if you do it as part of a cleansing every season and it's not your regular everyday diet, a raw food diet is a good option for some people. And some people will incorporate that into this next one, juicing or a juice fast. Because of course, we know if we're juicing, these are raw fruits and vegetables. So you may, of course, implement or include juicing in with a raw food diet. Some people will strictly do a juicing or a raw juice fast for a certain number of days. And this is freshly pressed juices of fruits and vegetables. I've already given you my spiel of really not mixing the two. Usually the exception is a subacidic fruit like an apple. Usually the vegetables, just so you can make them a little more tasty, I always suggest adding a cucumber or a piece of ginger in with it, but really trying to maintain it being a strictly vegetable-based juice. So this would be your kale, your dandelion greens or your beet greens, your beets, your string beans, things like that. You may not normally think, oh, let me just juice that all by itself, but to get those good alkaline minerals in your body, if you need to add a little bit of celery or cucumber or ginger to it to make it taste better, that's going to be your best recipe or guidelines in terms of what to include in your juicing. If you're doing fruit juices, I would suggest doing your more fiber-rich fruits as opposed to your sweeter fruits. So doing your apples, your pears, your berries, your citrus, as opposed to strictly pineapple and grape and mango, those that are very sweet and starchy and high calorie. You really want to limit those things. Same with the vegetables, like the root vegetables. If you are being conscious about calorie intake, high glycemic foods, if you're interested in losing weight, you wouldn't do a lot of carrot juice. You wouldn't do a lot of the mango juices and the really sweet fruits in your juicing. You're going to want to do primarily vegetables and your fiber-rich, high pectin fruits, okay? Another diet choice is the alkaline diet. So another easy way to alter your diet without doing a lot of changes, you may simply start with doing, say, 70 to 80% alkaline forming foods. But this is basically a diet that focuses on what the pH of a food is. And generally these are going to be more vegetarian or plant-based foods are going to be your alkaline foods, as opposed to your meats and butters and dairy stuff that is more acid forming foods, okay? And then another option that's listed here is the macrobiotic diet. This can be a very, very strict diet. I put together some information for our Global Green Book, and there's a health section, and I compiled some information, and I learned about the macrobiotic diet years ago. I even went to a macrobiotic restaurant in New York it's probably been 30 years ago. And I think I forgot just how strict this diet can be, right? Because they have restrictions on what to eat, when to eat, what utensils to eat out of, how to, what to cook your food in, what times of day to eat. But it mainly also focuses on a vegetarian diet, but it includes a lot of grains and things of that nature as well. But it's based off of the yin and yang concept. But this can be really good with restoring balance and harmony in the body. So this is an option to look into as well. So, but this may be, a good option for some people. This Gerson diet, I'm not personally that familiar with it. This source lists this here. This basically seems to be a combination of diet choices where you include raw juices, coffee enemas, natural supplements, trying to eat organic vegetarian diets, and following this Dr. Max Gerson diet. And there are many other diets. So if it's not a matter of just, vegetarian or, not, there are other types of diets that you can follow that can improve your health. Also in the book that we, I'm sure we'll be releasing pretty soon, is I give a lot of just basic tips. So even if you don't want to follow a strict diet, there are just some really good dietary habits that we can implement to improve our health. And the good thing about that is that can be done wherever you are on the planet. Some things you will have access to that I talk about or that I mentioned, some things you will not. However, some basic eating or dietary principles we can all kind of follow, okay? So I talked earlier about food combining, right? So this is what I was referring to. So all foods are in a category, right? And so we've already talked about carbohydrates. We've talked about proteins. We've talked about fats. We've talked about the micronutrients of vitamins and minerals, right? But here we're focusing on proteins, starches, or carbohydrates, right? Though we have learned for years that meat and potatoes go together, or that's a good meal, or you need your meat and potatoes, that is not proper food combining. Proteins and starches do not combine well for proper digestion. So your meats, your nuts, your soy products do not mix well with your grains, your beans, your potatoes, your squashes, things of that nature. So if you are eating proteins, you should combine them with leafy greens or other vegetables, your asparagus, your cucumber, your radishes, your carrots, your turnips, your peas, your corn, your Jerusalem artichokes. Mix those with your meats, your soy, your proteins. If you are eating starches, mix those with your leafy vegetables, your other vegetables, your greens, and such. Proteins and vegetables go together, starches and vegetables go together. And if you even look, and that's the most important part, I'll say, because unless you're a fruitarian and you strictly eat fruit, this part here is not as important, but it's still excellent for you to know, because even in the same category, not everything combines well. So we even separate fruit into acidic, subacidic, and sweet fruits. And so all of these should be eaten separately. If you mix those, it's an okay combination, but still not the best. And to my point of mixing fruits and vegetables, if you see here, vegetables and acidic fruits, a poor combination. If you see here, vegetables and subacidic fruits, a poor combination. If you see here, vegetables and sweet fruits, a poor combination, right? So it's not that you can't throw everything in your smoothie container and drink it and say, hey, I got my fruits and vegetables in. The issue is going to be that it may not digest properly. And if you're already prone to some kind of digestive disorders, if you're already overweight and things don't always settle as they should and digest as they should, and you don't eliminate as you should, strongly consider that you are not combining your foods properly, okay? So this chart I think is very important. And they just summarize it down here at the bottom, okay? I also referenced just some elements of healthy eating that I've included in the Global Green Book. Here are some of those things as well. So even again, if you don't change to being vegetarian or follow a raw food diet or a macrobiotic diet, or you don't juice, these are just some basic things that you can implement to improve your health through your diet. Eat whole foods, meaning the actual foods, not something that's been prepackaged, that's sat on a shelf that'll last forever. You want as naturally whole foods as you can find. And these, of course, are going to be your fruits, your vegetables, your whole grains, your beans, nuts, seeds, things of that nature. We are what we eat. We've heard that forever. It is definitely true. You want to reduce any refined foods. These are foods that have excess sugar, excess fat, additives, colors. I have a really strict rule that I've taught my children, and we well, you know, once children get around other folk, they kind of eat what they want. But what they have learned in the foundation here is we don't do these colory, sugary foods that appeal to babies and children as if what we eat has to be some bright red, blue, green, or some other kind of ridiculousness, right? So synthetic food colorings we know are linked to different types of cancer and other disorders in the body. So any food colorings we should avoid. There is a whole list of food additives that we should avoid. Really reading labels and learning what some of the ingredients in foods are is very important. I already talked about the 4 ounces of liquids, limiting that. Chewing your food well, very important. Eat slowly and intentionally, chew very well. Treat that food like it is giving you life, because it is, or it should be. And if it's not, you shouldn't be eating it. Get sufficient fiber. We've talked about the fiber-rich foods. There's a reason for that. That is so you have proper bowel movements. You need fiber-rich foods. We talked about water. In that, you can include herbal teas if you're not adding a bunch of sugar and sweetener to it. Sometimes we need supplementation. Sometimes you need digestive aids, hydrochloric acid, digestive enzymes, pancreatic enzymes. Sometimes we need that based on us not combining foods properly or having a history of food sensitivities that we've not addressed, or other reasons that we have a poor digestive system. It could be food combining, it could be food sensitivity that you don't know about, but sometimes we need digestive supplements to help aid our digestion. Exercise, regular elimination, moderate use or consumption of alcohol, caffeine, and nicotine. If you can do away with those things altogether, that's even better, okay? We will talk more about bowel movements. I think that's in week 4, but just know you have to eliminate every day. Several times a day would be great, but if at least once, we're going to be doing better than most. You'll have no idea how many people think it is normal and it is their regular routine to only move their bowels once every few days. That is not healthy. I don't care what doctor tells you. And many people do. They'll say, oh, if that's normal for you, then that's fine. Or that's normal. That is not normal. So you have to work to move your bowels, to have a bowel movement, to release at least once a day. I always say at least twice a day, okay? And so the next things, this is just something you can do on your own to have as a reference. This is a dietary check questionnaire. This is to give you an idea, if you're not sure, of just how well or how poorly you're eating, okay? And then you can determine for yourself what changes you need to make. And you can base it on the information that's provided here. Even though there's many more references and resources, this is a really great start for someone. So just know you have the information that you need. Oh, great. You all have been doing some conversing here. Also, great. Yes. I'm glad you all are connecting with Mama Ayo if you didn't know her already, and she is in our directory, as many other holistic practitioners are. But we should definitely get to know each other and utilize folk who are giving us good information that's life-changing and life-sustaining. How do we turn our food into medicine? Food is medicine. You just have to eat it properly, learn about it, know what you're getting from it, which foods you need to include and what things you need to eliminate. And when we talk about detoxing, you know, you'll have a routine of how to detox when we've consumed foods that have not been life-sustaining. I'm scrolling through these, Mama Denise, Sister Denise. Yeah, sugar is a lot of people's weakness. I'm scrolling through the comments. Email me on that one. Yeah. Yeah, so what I do, and someone's talking about the juicing, one or the other. And I usually just separate them out per meal. I usually do fruit meals or fruit juice meals in the morning, and then I'll usually do my vegetable meals later in the day. So yeah. Awesome. Okay, I'm glad you all have been sharing some information. Okay, my time is up. Good dialogue, everyone. I see people have employed the chat for what I think is intended. I love that. So you all are interacting with each other. I love that. So my time is up. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we'll talk about herbs and essential oils, homeopathic remedies, and some other things. So thanks for joining us. And as always, I bid you good health and peace.
Thank you so much, Nana Akua, for a wonderful lecture. On next, we're going to have Dr. Tyreen Wright on today's Pan-African organizing class. Let me unmute you, Dr. Tyreen Wright. Yes, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, yeah, I'm here. I was saying, I'm here, unmute me. Okay, so you'll see me in 2 seconds as well. Good morning, afternoon, evening to everyone. I know everybody's like scattered around the world, so welcome. Happy New Year. I know some people celebrate New Year this time of year, some people don't. And so I want to get started. I'll actually be posting the things we'll be using as I teach. And so you will see me momentarily. So welcome to the Pan-African History and Organizing course. My name is Tyreen Wright, and I will be teaching the course for you this semester. Let me get my camera positioned and we'll start. This course basically is the ideological training course for I Love Black People. And what we focus on is preparing you to do the work that you do with I Love Black People, helping you to make the ideological, and I will talk about what ideology means, but the ideological adjustments and transformation you need to make in order to give context to the work so that you can be effective in being ambassadors for I Love Black People, for Black people in general, right? So I think all of you know what we do here at I Love Black People, so I don't need to belabor the point. However, what you will learn here is really meant to fortify you in the history and the tradition, because what we're doing here is not something we're doing. Let me turn my alarm off, sorry. Okay. What we're doing here is something that we're not reinventing the wheel. It's on a continuum, and it's not something that we're doing for the first time. Okay, just the difference with I Love Black People is that we're using technology in order to execute what we're doing. So that is the significant difference. I'm trying to make sure that you can see me well when I turn this on. Proper lighting. Okay, so I will be, you'll see me in 2 seconds, and I will also be, okay, hold on, I want to get mine. All right, good. All right, so I will be sharing all the relevant information during the course of the semester. So you do not have to buy anything. You do not have to purchase any books. All of that is provided by myself via I Love Black People in the group, in the WhatsApp group, and primarily in PDF form. I personally suggest that people I personally suggest that people, print out if possible, and or even create a file and save all of the information that you get from us here, primarily because it is valuable and it is something that you can go forward and use as you do the work that you do. And you would not ordinarily get it for free, meaning that some of the documents in terms of research would have to be paid for. Intellectual property can be quite expensive. So I would encourage you to, of course, you have access to the course in WhatsApp as I post the documents and materials, but I would also suggest that you take it out of WhatsApp, download it to whatever space that you use in general outside of this. Okay, so that's the other item that I wanted to make sure that I highlighted, that you get a takeaway out of this for yourself. Okay, in terms of the materials. I think I must have my camera right. Okay, I do. So let me get you guys visually. And then I'm going to be sharing from another screen. Let's see. One second, folks. Let me just get the lighting because I don't think you can see me, even if I do get. All right. Okay. All righty there. So hello, everyone. You can connect the name with a face now. All right. So yes, so we're going to be doing quite a bit of work that you would want to keep, okay? Documents that you would want to keep in your arsenal, so to speak, thereafter, so that it's not just something that you do in this course, that you can actually go back and reference it. So I would encourage everyone to sort of choose a place or space that you stockpile that information in. Okay, let me just make sure I'm plugged in. So I'm going to be sharing first off the syllabus, and I've always got to adjust the dates because we go right from one cycle to the next. But I'm going to be sharing with you the syllabus and some of the materials initially that we're going to cover this week. Typically, how the course works is that we have our meeting on Saturday, and then the reading materials go out on Monday, and you read those materials during the course of the week. And then I lecture on those same materials on the following Saturday. So to keep that in mind. And we discourse usually, folks in the group usually conversate about the readings, about the subject matter and the materials during the course of the week. So that's generally our schedule, but you'll see that on the syllabus, how it is organized. Hello, everyone. So the other thing is there are no tests or anything. It is really sort of a guided self-study with lecture. I teach this course really like I would teach a graduate course, in the sense that you are basically following the readings, and the readings are really the content of the course, okay? That's sort of like graduate level, practitioner level, meaning that for people who are already, adults in their lives and are looking more so for application, not, like elementary school where we're we're testing people and anything like that. No, we understand that you're real people, you're in your regular lives, and this is an endeavor in and of itself to be commended, that you are taking on the work that we do in I Love Black People and educating yourself in the process. So everything we discuss here is meant for application. It's meant for you to apply it to the work, and to the work that you're doing, and to life in general, right? So there is no test, but we will have discourse. I will generally, on the days that I lecture, try to stop early enough for me to, for Q&A, for me to be able to address some of what is in the chat, and for us to, you know, dialogue a little bit along those lines. If you have any questions, comments about the readings and what we are covering in the context of the group and in the seminar, then you would actually add your questions to the chat, conversate with me there. So it never goes as planned, because I'm sort of long-winded, but but typically I'm supposed to start at 11:45 and then teach until, let's say 12:30, and then we give the last 15 minutes to Q&A, comments, questions. As I say to my students, problems, questions, comments, or issues related to the material or the course. The readings, once again, I'll be doing the first of the readings that come from a text that I wrote called Booker T. Washington, Africa, The Making of Pan-Africanists. And I don't use it because I wrote the book. I use it because I know that it covers specifically the history of Pan-Africanism. Even if you aren't familiar with Washington as a Pan-Africanist, which most people are not, that's some of my research that I did years ago. There is a chapter where we start out that I will actually give you today on the history of Pan-Africanism as it emerges, as it constitutes itself in the world. So that is one of the things we'll start with. Let me see if I can get some better light in here. Seems like it's a little dark. Hold on. I don't know if that's better, but it's a little dim. So we start with that. Let's see. I'm sitting right next to my computer, but I'm biased. I always look to use my device in order to teach this, because it's sort of like easier anyway, and then I can work on the computer at the same time. That being said, okay, so we start with that chapter, and that chapter basically breaks down the early history of Pan-Africanism. Side note, sorry guys, hold on 1 second. No, Niall. Okay, sorry. Sorry, everyone. Little interruption. Okay, so the chapter breaks down Pan-Africanism as it is budding in the world. And I was about to say side note about something. I forgot, but okay. So that chapter does that. It's very functional. So I may be biased in the sense that I wrote it, but I use it primarily because it is functional, and it allows me to cover the history of Pan-Africanism as it's emerging in the world at that moment in time. You know, so that's the main thing. Okay, all of those things will be given to you in the context of the course. And the other part is I use a lot of film. Well, not a lot, but enough. Okay, I use a bit of film, and we are going to start out with the film even in this session. It's called The Journey of Man, a Genetic Odyssey. I use this film in the academic arena in the context of the university. And that was the side note I forgot. So I teach in the university system. So I use this for every class. And I will tell you a little bit about myself in terms of my credentials or whatever, which brings me here to I Love Black People. So that's a side note. I never like to start like that, because I'm like, let's just jump right into it, as opposed to talking about myself or whatever. You'll actually figure and learn or come to know certain things about me just as part and parcel of taking the course, right? So, but I will set aside a moment to say, you know, this is some of the work that I've done that brings me here to teach this particular course for I Love Black People and to be engaged in I Love Black People, which I've been for a while. We use a film called The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey, which I recently just adopted for this course. And I adopted it because I said to myself, why am I not doing this with, people in this program? And I Love Black People when I do this for the university, okay? Which to me, I mean, we need to understand this even more. So I quickly adopted it and adjusted it to make sure that we also get the benefit of this particular information, which is the scientific information related to the African existence, okay? And I will get deeper into that. But the basic premise of the first thing you're gonna watch, and like I said, I use this for everything I teach, because if we're gonna talk about human beings, then we need to know what that means. What does it mean to be human? And I posit and I argue that what it means to be human, is African, okay? African is synonymous with human. And a natural characteristic of African people is Blackness, okay? Black identity, brown skin, melanin manifesting, okay? Which a very young group of people, Europeans, have decided to call race, okay? So that being said, I have a little distraction going on here, but okay. That being called race, right? So, hello. So, I'm trying to get my thing straight. Okay. So, I use this film to drive home that point and that issue, right? So that folks can understand the difference between culture and race and all of those things, as opposed to, you know, not being informed. I think you should come out of this with that in your arsenal, understanding what that is, the differences and all of that, okay? And so we do that. And I use the film, A Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey, which features, actually was initiated by Spencer Wells, several years ago as a result of writing a book. And the book basically gives you the science. So the science says that for most of the time on Earth, for the last 200,000 to 300,000 years, African was synonymous with human, okay? And it has only been, let's be generous. Let's say only in the last 50,000 years or so that you've had people emerging out of Africa and going out into the rest of the world, particularly the Americas and other places. But it's safe to say that all the world's indigenous people, as we migrate out of Africa at various times for various reasons, were identifiably Black. Right? So it's no big deal when they go over to the Maldives or anywhere in the world and they say, oh, you know, they show the people and the people are uncolonized and they're Black. Of course they're Black. All the world's indigenous people are Black. What could they be? That is a normal human characteristic, just to be very real about it. People who are not Black, who don't manifest melanin in any real significant way, but have melanin in their bodies, right? Because certainly our organs have melanin, all right? If any of your organs are white, this is Dr. Nana Akua's area, but let me just be very clear. If any of your organs are white, it's over for you. So none of our organs are white, okay? Let's be very clear. That would be a very serious problem. Our organs have melanin. And then we have the ability to manifest melanin too on our skin, which is, and in our eyes, in our hair, and all of that, which is the natural human state characteristic, right? Now, 7,000 to 8,000 years ago, a group of Africans migrate out of Africa after the Ice Age and go up into what is presently Europe. And there's an admixture. I'm not going to get deep into it because I don't want to have those whole conversations, but there's an admixture with another hominid, and there are Europeans who emerged as a result of that climate, that environment. People, Europeans meaning people who lack a pronounced amount of melanin, or people who lack the ability to manifest melanin on their skin, right? They still have hair and eye color and all of that kind of stuff. However, the skin, right? Those people have only existed for the last 7,000 to 8,000 years in our very long history as humanity of 200,000 to 300,000 years. See that? 200,000 to 300,000 years is like this. 7,000 years is like this, right? It's like 2 minutes in historical terms, okay? And those people, in the context of their culture, would come up with, in the last 400 to 500 years, let's say 500 years now, this concept of race, okay? As they come out into the rest of the world as a result, certainly, of scarcity, right? Because Europe has always been unsustainable. And I'll get into that, but we're not going deep into that, only because we're here to examine and master the African condition and how we move, self-mastery, so we know how to move in the world so that we can eradicate that thing that they created called race, okay? So we're not fixating on them. We don't control them. We're fixating on us, right? But I use Spencer Wells. Everything I just said, Spencer Wells addresses in this film, The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey, which basically talks about this age-old premise that I just discussed, that humanity began in Africa, that humanity is African, okay? It's synonymous. Meaning that they are interchangeable. When I talk about human, I'm talking about African people first. And yes, African people are identifiably what? Black, identifiably brown. That is our natural characteristic. As I tell my students in the university, it is the human jacket, melanin. All right, you don't want to leave home without it. You really don't. It protects us in the environment from the sun and all of its other elements that could be a danger to us. So melanin is a good thing. Now, it is only recently that these very young group of people who are European and lack that have created a category known as race. All right, and created a social construct called race. It is not a biological construct. It is a social construct based on physical characteristics, right? And that is called race. And this is where we get to whites and black and this and that and the other. However, melanin manifesting is the natural human condition. You know, like when you go to the store and someone says, don't buy the white bread, buy the brown bread, right? Because it hasn't been bleached. All right, you know that the brown bread is healthier for you because it's in its natural state. It has not been altered, all right? Well, yes. Ability to manifest melanin is the natural state of the human being. So what happens in this film, which is an exhibit of the book called The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey, Spencer Wells, a white individual who does not manifest melanin, tests through science, qualifies through science, this long standing theory that humanity began in Africa and then migrated to the four corners of the world. That's in essence the theory that has been an age-old theory. How does he do this? He uses DNA mapping. He goes around the world and he tests various people's DNA in order to prove or disprove this theory about the origin of humanity. Now, I'll jump to the end because you still won't know, you're still gonna have to watch it for the quality of it to get the significance of it. But ultimately he is able to prove that, right? He maps DNA with a marker that's on the male chromosome, that's on the male DNA, which is the Y chromosome, and goes around the world mapping DNA to prove or disprove that the origin of humanity is in fact Africa. And so he begins with the Khoisan people of Southern Africa, present day Namibia. And I'll show you a clip of that today, and you'll watch the rest of the film on its own. But the point of showing this film is to raise all of our boats, so we're on the same level in understanding that we are humanity. African people are humanity, okay? The fact that we have to do this work is very interesting, at the least, to say the least. Meaning that we have to organize ourselves to fight an ism like racism and xenophobia, which threatens our humanity and our lives. The irony that the humans, the parent people on earth, have to struggle against an ism, a social construct that challenges our humanity, that alters our life, that decreases our life chances in every area of life. That is ironic, right? However, it is on a scientific level a necessary occupation, undertaking, and on an ideological level, it is a righteous cause, right? No human being should have to be concerned about human negation, right? No human being should have to be concerned about having their life taken because of their natural characteristics, right? So I hope I'm driving home with you how organic and natural it is for us to appear as we do, right? And for those to be the constructs through which our life chances are decreased, our life chances are altered, is ironic. It's insane, right? I'll quote Martin Luther King. He said, racism is evil because the ultimate logic of racism is genocide. The ultimate logic of racism is genocide. Right? If I can deny you from going to school, deny you from living here, deny you of going there, deny you of having clean water, then I can ultimately deny you life, right? So the work we're doing here is an undertaking, a commitment to destroying a inherently genocidal system called white supremacy and culture, AKA racism, because its ultimate logic is to kill and destroy human beings, right? Deny us life itself, not just things, not just opportunities, to in effect decrease all of our life chances, to shorten and cut your life in every way. That's what racism does, right? That is the ultimate logic, right? And just so you know, a reference, Martin Luther King says that in his speech, you can find on YouTube, to Stanford University, shortly before he is actually killed. He talks about, to an audience of young white people, about the two Americas, and he talks about the genocidal objectives of racism, right? So it looks like it's just simple denial of freedoms. No, its ultimate logic is to deny you of life, right? And this is why there's a death toll attached to racism, right? So I feel like I've belabored that. I'm going to share some things first. I'm going to share the syllabus into the group and just go over that briefly. So if you bear with me on that. Let me go share this. And then, oh, sorry, guys. I already saved it, so I just want to adjust some things. Okay. Actually, while I'm doing this, I might just something. One second. Sorry, just wanted to. I don't want to lose this information. Okay. All right, so I'm about to share this and go over essentially just the details of our readings and what you'll actually be learning during the course of the semester with this course. Just a little information while I move this to the WhatsApp group. This is actually our really 14th session doing this course with I Love Black People. We started this course last year. We started this course last year, right early in the pandemic, let's say April of 20, oh, not last year, sorry, 2020. This is 2022, so over a year and a half ago, more than a year and a half ago, in April, we started doing this course for the ambassadors of I Love Black People. And so first, initially, it was just the Pan-African history course. And now, since there's been other things added, Nana Kua's course on health and holistic health. That being said, we are in our 13th session. Really, it's actually, if this is 13, our first one was 0, right? We didn't have a number attached to it the first session, but this is the 13th. So it really means that this is our 14th cycle in which we have taught this. And we go year round. So tell everybody, tell, other ambassadors, they got to get in the course, tell, people outside that they've got to get with, I Love Black People and what we're doing here in the ideological training course. The biggest takeaway from the training course is the ideological training course is that it positions you to do the work that we do here at I Love Black People, and pretty much gives you a reset and connects you to the long history of the tradition of this work, so that you're not under the impression that you are out there alone or that you're the first one to do this, when in fact you are not, and I am not, and we are not. Okay. So that's the main thing that it does. It steeps you in the history. I will get into some our ideological fathers in this struggle for liberation in our lives, who talk about precisely that. The fact that we are not the first ones to do this work. We are not the first ones to engage in this undertaking. I'm just making sure that I get the right thing here. Okay. All right, so here goes the document. I'm going to feed this to you, the document, right from the WhatsApp group, so that when you go to it, you will in fact see hold on one second. You will in fact just see it already in your group, right? So hold on, let me see. I'm getting a little glitch here. See something. Okay, what is going on? Sorry, folks, 1 second. Let me just see what is happening here. See if I could do it this way. Copy. No, not letting me do that. Okay. One second. Why are you doing this? Okay, hold on, sorry. I wanna just make sure. All right, 1 second. Sorry, folks. Actually, if I had two sets of a second set of eyes, I would I would be reading the questions at the same time, but I can't. Okay. People, spring. This. We have recognition. I want you on desktop. Okay, let's see if we got it. Okay, good. All right. So, yeah, just a little glitch here. The file that I use is like wasn't showing up, so I don't know what was going on, but it's here now, I think. Okay, yeah, there it goes. All right. Okay, so there you go. It's actually in the group now. Those are your edits. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what we are doing this semester. So this is the syllabus. It's not a long syllabus. It's we're only 4 weeks. We're only a 4-week session. So we cover a lot of ground, and I'm actually gonna do a little revision to this and changes do a couple of tweaks and changes to this, because I want to add, the active role of women into the context of our study in this seminar. And that's something, in the past, I have not done particular focus, but I do think that that is necessary. And I'm going to actually do that in this particular cycle. Okay. I think understanding the role of women in the African struggle for liberation and the struggle against racism and white supremacy is important. We don't talk enough about it. I can easily, once you see the syllabus, you'll see, I can easily run down all of the men that who have made significant contributions, but we rarely understand the role of African women, Black women in the African struggle for liberation. And it is an essential role because we are in mass in the African world. So I do want to, this semester, add particular focus to that in addition to what we normally do, meaning give some deliberate attention to that aspect of our struggle. Why? Because we don't know enough about it. And two, we also don't really understand that to have retrograde or backwards thinking about women also means you have the backwards thinking about humanity in general and about our community as African people and Black people. So we want to address in a progressive way the role of African women in our struggle, because like no other women in the world, African women have been always in the struggle for our liberation, be it on the continent and the diaspora, whether that's the women of Ashanti, whether that's the Kindakes, like no other women in the world, okay? Or a Hatshepsut. African women have been deeply entrenched and involved in all of the transformational struggles of our people the world over, okay? And I'm ashamed that I'm getting to cycle 14, basically, and have not given particular attention to that, but I will do that, even if it's just, half of a session in the context, or just to integrate it into our whole course of study here. But that is one improvement that I seek to make in terms of my own criticism of how I have taught this in the past. Okay, so let me just share my screen. I'm going to open up the WhatsApp group, and I'm going to share the syllabus here in this Zoom so that we can go over the expectations and the outline of the course. Let me see what time is it. Okay, good. I'm not doing bad on time. Hold on. So let me open up the WhatsApp. All right, did I put it in there? Oh no, okay, here it goes. There it goes. All right. Okay, so can I share my screen? Can I have permission to share my screen? Okay. All right. Can you see my screen? Moderator, could you just verbally let me know if you see my screen? Hello? Can you? Okay, good. All right. Maybe stepped away. All right, so this is the course syllabus for I Love Black People's Pan-African History and Organizing. And I'll just read the description to you briefly. An introduction. The course is called It's called Introduction to Pan-African History and Organizing. An Introduction to Pan-African History and Organizing and Ideological Development course that surveys the history of Pan-Africanism as a theory and practice. Theory and practice constitute ideology, okay? The course is structured to examine and engage in a critical analysis of the theories and practices of Pan-Africanism as both a political and ideological impetus for organizing African people globally. The course begins with the historical foundations of Pan-Africanism at the turn of the 20th century as a budding concept in the African diaspora and the Americas. It becomes the impetus for international organizing in Europe, for the first Pan-African Conference, 1900, and finds its highest expression in Africa as a liberation struggle for the total independence of the African continent. Many question the measurable results produced by Pan-Africanism. This course explores this idea and qualifies the practice and production of Pan-Africanism and the measurable gains for African people globally by examining policy cases, conference resolutions, and the implementation of the ideology as African nationalists and the masses of the people on the ground express it, okay? So the objective, hold on, let me see something. Oh, hold on, I gave you the short version of the syllabus, sorry. There's a whole bunch of qualifiers here. So in the context of the course, so let me post the other one. So that is the brief description, okay, of the course for you all. That being said, there's more to that I just realized that got cut out, okay? No, that's not what I want. Okay. All right, so there's a whole bunch of course objectives. Sorry about that, folks. So I'm going to just read them to you all so that we don't waste time, and then I'll post them as well. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to just post this actually. I'm just going to post this actually, this part, and then I'll integrate it into the updated syllabus. Sorry. Then I'll integrate it into the updated syllabus. Did I share my screen? Did you all see that or no?
Yes, we did see it.
Okay, all right, good. Let me just, I'm gonna cut and paste this so that actually it's good for us to have this way so that you can actually just reference it as we go through the course without having to like go into the syllabus as well. So let me just do that. And we'll go over each one of them with a brief description. Okay, so I'm gonna, if you're in the WhatsApp group right now, you'll see I just posted something. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna share that too. Okay, you gotta give me permission again to share my screen.
Okay, let me give you a permission to share your screen.
Yeah, you gotta give me permission again, one more time.
All right.
Thank you. Wait, only the host can share in this meeting. One more time, you gotta go to the security.
Now you can share it.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. All right, so okay, I don't know what this is doing. All right, so I just posted this. Learning outcomes. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, yes, yes, we can see
And
it.
I'll just repost the syllabus with the version that has this in there, but I don't want to waste any more time. So learning outcomes for this course. You are going to learn a working definition of Pan-Africanism, knowledge of its specific history, development, and emergence as an ideology, theory, and practice in the world. Okay, that's number one. You will come out of here with a working definition, as opposed to, you know, what we do now. We pretty much think Pan-Africanism is just like, oh, Black people, we get together, we all, you know, kumbaya. No, that's not what it is. It's unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation. We're coming together with a purpose, a collective purpose, a unified purpose to protect and insulate ourselves from white supremacy and culture, from the scourge of racism, okay, and from the negative impact of xenophobia, okay? We come together to insulate ourselves, to protect ourselves wherever we are in the world. That's what Pan-Africanism is. Not just coming together to have a good time. That's inadequate. That is not what Pan-Africanism was, or nor should it be. Okay, and I'll explain how this definition comes about, because it comes about as a result of our historical context. Okay, that was the intention in the beginning, right? 2, the ability to identify and qualify Pan-Africanist thought, speech, and action across various technological mediums, social media platforms, virtual realities, and brick and mortar spaces. Essentially, how to identify whether someone's thought, speech, or actions is really about unifying for the purpose of protecting each other and ourselves, or not. Right? So we identify that rhetorically and otherwise, and we identify that in terms of practice. You know, I always say Black presence doesn't mean Black progress. Just because we have Black folks here, there, everywhere, it doesn't mean that they're there to protect us. Very often they're there to serve someone else's interest. Okay, I couldn't stress that enough. All right, that very often that the objective of people who are identifiably Black, but not ideologically committed, meaning in thought and in practice committed to protecting us, are in places of power, and it produces nothing for us. So we want to become adept at qualifying people's behavior. And that leads us to number 3, the ability to qualify whether policies, legislation, organizational initiatives, and or general practices are Pan-Africanist in nature and beneficial to African and Black people. Okay, very often we have this idea that, just like I said, Black presence is good. No, we need to qualify everything. What did this produce for us? Did this produce anything good for us? Okay, anything more than make us feel good? I know some of you are going to get mad at me right now, but I'll give you a perfect example. The Obama administration, it made Black people feel good. The Black aesthetic, the visual of having a Black male president and his Black wife. What did it do for us in terms of policy that benefited African people, Black people, whether that's in the United States or on the African continent? Nothing. Matter of fact, it was quite destructive to us, just being honest. And I'm somebody, I didn't get into my bio and background, but I'm somebody who studies policies as they impact African and Black people. And as far as I have studied, and I made a lot of critiques of the Obama administration and wrote quite a few articles about that administration while it was in office. And I was able to qualify the policies as they played out in Africa under AFRICOM and things of that nature, and in the United States. Okay, there was no executive order in protection of African life in the same way that Biden currently has created an Asian hate bill via executive order. When I would argue that, people would say, oh, but he can't. No, he can. He didn't want to, and he was unwilling to use his power to the benefit of African and Black people. So when we go to weigh and qualify, measure, right? Measurable results, we can't say that that was an administration that worked for us, African people. Did not. Okay, and we're not talking about a dressing contest, who look good or who looks the best or better. We know we always look good. But we're talking about who is it good? What you're doing, is it good for Black people? Is it good for African people? Are you loving us through action? Right? That's all we care about here. Right? So the ability to identify imperialism, number 4, the ability to identify imperialism, colonialism, and neocolonialism as oppressive and exploitative systems as they have manifested throughout the African world. Okay, so essentially a critique of neocolonialism, colonialism, imperialism, as they have existed and expanded through history. And presently, we are all in a neo-colonial state where we have people, and this is why this point is so important. We have people who look like us who are in positions of power but do not serve our interests. Matter of fact, they are placed there to go against our best interests, right? And we're supposed to be confused by the aesthetic, right? Somehow, I always give an example that leads into the very next thing. So sometimes I'm ahead of myself. Anyway, 5, the means and methods through which African and Black people have organized, fought, resisted, and liberated themselves and nations from imperialism, colonialism, and the ways in which colonialism, neocolonialism is currently being resisted. So in other words, we want to invoke the strategies and tactics of the past, of our previous revolutionaries, of our previous freedom fighters, and people who engaged in the struggle for our liberation and our right to walk this earth as human beings free of negation, wherever we are and whatever we are. Okay, so we are not reinventing the wheel. We are on a continuum. And so we are going to study those methods through which we have organized for this very same reason and purpose, right? To protect ourselves from the pathology of racism that has caused a death toll, that has a death toll attached to it, and has caused hardship and decreased our life chances in every area of life, the world over, right? You spin the globe and just put your finger on any part on the globe where we exist. Our people, African people, Black people, identifiably Black people, are suffering. Okay, that's enough reason for us to organize. And we're not going to create this for the first time. We are invoking the strategies and tactics of the past. 6, the role of Pan-Africanism as a primary strategy and tactic in the effort to eliminate racism and xenophobia. Self-explanatory, just sort of dealt with that in the last one. Let me go back to that. So the role of Pan-Africanism, primary strategy. So let me give you another word for Pan-Africanism. Another word for Pan-Africanism is unity. So I've been encountering this a lot in general as an educator, but then a lot as I engage with people outside of academic spaces in larger society and doing this same work. I've encountered people who don't really understand what our task or what the task ahead of us truly is. The task before us is not to convince any other group of people or control any other group of people. Our task before us is to control ourselves and unify ourselves. Unity in and of itself is a tool. Okay, impenetrable unity is a tool, and it is our weapon to navigate the world everywhere we are. So in other words, us moving in a block insulates us. Now we don't have to worry about our opposers or our detractors or the isms, right? So our struggle is getting Black people, African people on the same page to be unified. Unity will remedy all of the other stuff, right? When you move in unison, impenetrable unity. Some of us think that it's for us, particularly out here in that diaspora, for us to be fighting these people or fighting that. No, we need to be on the same page. It's like an armor, if you think about unity, okay? Yeah, I'll leave it at that, but it is, and I go even deeper in the context of the seminar about what unity means and what unity does for us. Our task is achieving unity, right? Part of how we do that is to resolve our contradictions amongst each other, thinking we're different, thinking we do not suffer under the same condition, okay? Thinking that we can step on each other's heads, thinking that we are special in a system of white supremacy and culture that spans the world, right? Oh no, I don't go. No, you do. And the only time you don't go through X, Y, and Z is when you're being utilized by white institutions or entities, okay? And it don't even matter if they're white. It could be yellow, red, blue, purple, green. When we are being utilized against each other, you know, you become part of a machine, you understand? To marginalize a system that marginalizes us. So, and none of us are exempt, right? So you could be the perfect, what I call tool in the system of white supremacy and culture and still suffer under it. Let me say it another way. Do I want to give, can I give a good example? There's too many good examples. I'll give a classic example. Clarence Thomas, who is a Supreme Court judge in the, who is the Supreme Court judge in the United States. He is someone who benefited from things like affirmative action that come out of the social and political struggles of African people in America. However, he does not identify very much with Black people, okay? He is totally and squarely positioned in white American culture and advances those interests as necessary for him. That being said, he thought because he was a humble and faithful servant to them in that system, that he was off limits. No. In the 1980s or whenever it was, decades ago, when he was put up for nomination to the Supreme Court, they dragged him on some sexual assault and harassment charges, to the point that this was part of his confirmation and testimonials and challenges by the Congress as he is seeking to be confirmed for the Supreme Court. They did him in such a way that he openly said, this is a public lynching, as if he expected to be off limits and not be under attack. Okay, it probably was a public lynching, but why did you think you were exempt? You are Black. You are an African person in America. You're going to be attacked. However, he thought he was safe because he had served the establishment in this country so well. He was not off limits. Okay, so you can serve them. You can serve white supremacy and culture. You can serve racist systems racist institutions, you still also will be attacked by those same systems and institutions, and your Black body is not off limits. So, you know, that is what I'm talking about, okay? That, you know, being in their spaces doesn't mean we're off limits. This should add to the number of reasons why we have to be diligent, okay? It is indiscriminate, right? It doesn't care if you are, you know, the butler in the White House. It doesn't care if you are working for the European Union. It doesn't care, okay? You can still be murdered wherever you are by a person entrenched in the system of white supremacy and culture and get away with it. And side note, we had a great victory here yesterday in the United States. And I'm 4 minutes over, but I'm gonna finish this up. But we had a great victory here in the United States where the murderers of a young man named Ahmaud Arbery were convicted about a month ago, but given life in prison with no possibility of parole for the two individuals, father and son, who shot him and hunted him down and shot him on the streets like an animal, or even an animal here probably would be treated better. They would, the animal folks would come and get you if you kill the animal on the street like that. Worse than an animal, okay? But the father and son, Travis and I think his name is Greg McMichaels, I shouldn't even name them, were given life in prison with no possibility of parole, which means that they both will die in prison, and rightfully so, because they took a life. And so I'm thinking, you know, it's only rightful that they give theirs. And then the third person involved in there who did not pull the trigger, but recorded it and was following it and actually, you know, assaulted and Ahmaud Arbery and, you know, hit him with his truck, was given life, but with the possibility of parole. But he still, that means he still has to do his 30 years before he can, parole could even be entertained. And for him, a man of that age also is ultimately a life sentence, hopefully. So I don't know, maybe out here we're getting closer to a space where we understand that it's going to be a life for a life when you take life out here. But I'm not convinced. That's just one case. We have so many scenarios where we lose life and there's no recourse for it. Okay, so I just wanted to side note, update you guys on that. But the tragic case of Ahmaud Arbery probably has been, aside from George Floyd, notable because of the nature of his murder by these three white men who feel like they could chase you down, like we're still in the antebellum South and slavery is still, you know, supreme here. No, I wouldn't say it's a new day, but, you know, there's people who are not going to go for that any longer. So those men have lost their natural lives in terms of their freedom for the rest of their lives as a result of that. But anyway, okay, so 7, the ability to differentiate multiple perspectives through an analysis of different case studies built on measured evidence-based arguments and research essays. Okay, and so we are going to use a number of resources, just like I'm giving you the case of Ahmaud Arbery, I'll be giving you a case, one called the African Exclusion Measure, which shows models an ideal expression of Pan-Africanism, how we come to advocate for each other and cover each other in the world that we live in, right? What unity means. How do we challenge institutions, governments, in order to protect African people and Black people wherever we are, right? The ability to apply the knowledge acquired in this seminar to the active role and responsibility as ambassadors of vital Black people in eradicating racism and xenophobia. I'll go in more in depth with that last time. And the ability to qualify again, everything before declaring it substantial or beneficial to African people, African and Black people locally and globally. I want to just stop and say, there's one of our great scholars out here, Dr. John Henry Clark. He always said, African people, we always want to celebrate the victory before we qualify the victory, right? We see Kamala Harris in office, you know, we partying, we celebrating. Let's qualify her policies. Who does she really think she is? Does she identify with African people? Does she identify with Black people? Is she consistent in producing policies that are beneficial to African people and to Black people? Okay, we're always happy about the aesthetic, right? The appearance of things. No, we can't. We need something we can feel. Our reality as African people, our hardships of a genocidal system are real. They're tangible. Hunger is tangible. Marginalization is tangible. Murder is a tangible reality for us, okay? But then when we go to recoup or recover, these are all intangibles, imagery, you know, a feeling, a song. No, we can't eat that. We've got to look at our material situation, our concrete reality. And so I'm going to talk more in depth about that, how we qualify these things and how they have been qualified in the past. And number 10, develop a measurable results orientation regarding business practices and services, policy and political agendas, legislative initiatives, organizational efforts, and institutional practices. In other words, we're going to look at how to measure the results in all these different areas, right? In services, when you're looking at assessing a business, is it Black friendly? What does that mean for us, right? Okay, and I have this conversation as we created some of the criteria with the co-founder. You know, that means that when you're in a business, should something happen, they're not calling the cops on you. They are assisting you as opposed to calling the cops on you for something that is not criminal. Okay. What does that mean in terms of policy and political agendas? It means that we get something concrete and, you know, and materials that we can weigh and measure that's beneficial to us from policymakers. Okay. What does that mean legislatively? That means that we get legislation that protects our lives in the midst of a climate and a period, or not even the climate period, because this has been the rule, not the exception, in a country and in countries where our lives have had suffered a death toll, right? Where we have suffered a loss of life. What are the policy initiatives? I always say, if I ever met Obama, I would say to him, so can you please tell me, because I'm not I'm not enamored by any human being. Can you please give me the policy? Because politicians produce legislation. I don't like you. I don't love you. I'm looking for the policy. Do your job. I have to do my job everywhere I go. Your job is to produce policy. Let me see the legislation where you sought to protect our very lives, where we suffer constantly a loss of life in the streets. I want to see the policy. Right? Now we know what that looks like because Biden did it for another group of people, right? The Asian hate bill. We don't see that with regard to African life, Black life, and particularly with regard to our children. I want to see that legislation. I don't want to throw you a ticker tape parade or woo over you or anything, and oh, you look good in this suit. I don't care. I want to see the policy, the legislative initiative. What does it say, right? Like the Ahmaud Arbery case. Are you going to get life when you kill our children? Right? When you hunt our children down like Trayvon Martin, right? By George Zimmerman, hunt a child down, fight him, and then shoot him when the child fights you back. Does that individual get life? That man is walking around. That was in the Obama administration. Okay, no legislation produced. for white civilians who think they can take Black life on the street and never see the inside of a jail cell, right? So we need legislation, okay? We don't like politicians because they look like us at all, not on the African continent, not out here in the diaspora. So we are talk about, and we're going to analyze that in real time so that we can sharpen our critical thinking ability as it relates to that. Be critical of them, okay? They're not meant to be liked or loved or anything like they're meant to put pen to paper in terms of legislation to our benefit, okay? Organizational efforts, organizations that have advanced the interests of Pan-Africanism. Once again, we don't want to recreate the mold. We want to invoke the practices of our ancestors and strategizing around addressing racism as it spans the world, right? And institutional practices. And I think that's redundant in the sense that institutional practices, what's happening in institutions to our favor or are in opposition to us, right? And how to weigh and measure how institutions deal with us. Are they doing things that are beneficial to us? I know some people who think that they're doing good things for white institutions, for Black people, but when you weigh and measure it, it's only to the benefit of those white institutions, right? They are Black faces in the role of a white institution, still doing the same kind of exploitation, still marginalizing Black people, all of those things. But because they are Black, now it has neutralized that for us, not for them. They still are potently racist, right? But now you've got Black tools, human tools who will advance the interests of white institutions and to the detriment of African and Black people, okay? So those are some of the learning outcomes that are expected from this. And then after that, we have the seminar themes, which is Pan-Africanism, unity, right? As the primary organizing tool, weapon, strategy for eradicating racism and xenophobia against African and Black people. Number two, the historical role, importance, and use of the dialectical, conversing, discourse sharing relationship between African and Black people globally as an effective strategy and tactic in combating white supremacy, racism, and xenophobia, which is a global pandemic. In other words, what we are doing now, talking across the globe about our common problem and our common interest in resolving this problem, is a age-old practice of discourse, dialogue across the world in problem solving with regard to racism. Right? So we've always had this relationship, and I will show you point in case where you see us more than 100 years ago talking to each other from the African continent to the United States, into Central America, into the Caribbean, strategizing around our condition and our issue of unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation, combating ultimately racism, aka white supremacy. So we've been doing that forever, and yeah, we've been doing that forever. We're not the first ones, and we won't be the last, right? So what we are here to do is to improve the communication, and we've been, we're improving the communication. We're not all in the same place, but we are communicating. Not through letter, in real time, right? You see me, I see you, we're gonna dialogue. 3, synthesizing an application of Pan-Africanist thought, speech, and action in everyday scenarios and challenges. I think that's self-explanatory. So we want to take the concept of Pan-Africanism and synthesize that into actually our speech and our action and life. So in other words, apply it, right? So we can take a definition and we apply it to our thoughts, our speech, our actions, right? So how are we integrating this ultimate objective of unity in every aspect of our life, right? the role of education, specifically history, in eliminating ignorance, divisiveness, propaganda, and individualism amongst African and Black people in the effort to achieve Pan-Africanism. I think that's self-explanatory. We're going to go back in time and show how we all suffer the same condition and how we have to organize ourselves. We have to realize that, and we have to struggle against the propaganda that they impose on us, saying that we're different. Okay. Sure, we have diversity. We represent African people. We represent the world's diversity. We give birth to humanity. Okay. That being said, we are in a time where we have a common condition as a result of this poisonous system called racism, this pathological system called racism. We have a common interest and common condition. So you can think you're different, right? You can be from a different ethnic group, and we respect that. I'm going to talk about that too. How do we manage our ethnic and cultural differences as African people, but still be on code and on message with regards to white supremacy culture and racism? How do we do that? Okay, so I will address that, but that in essence is what that means. The role of education, we're going to educate ourselves out of the ignorance of thinking that we're different in terms of our condition as it relates to white supremacy and culture and racism. Okay. So Malcolm X actually is the person who said, you know, history is best qualified to reward all research. You have a question, dig into the history. So that's what we do with the history of our struggle and the history of Pan-Africanism, the history of us constantly unifying for the purpose of problem solving around this common issue, right? And number 5, and finally, global Pan-Africanism, the unification of African people for the purpose of eradicating exploitation and oppression, racism, is a direct solution to the condition of African and Black people. And that right there is the historical definition of Pan-Africanism. So you guys know, that is the old bare bones definition of it. And you will see that in the readings. And so we want to go back to invoking that. And what does that mean for us globally, right? To be on code, to know that we don't engage in xenophobia, to know that everywhere we are, we have to unify for the purpose of protecting our very lives, which is at the top of our objective list. Okay. And yeah, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop there because I went much deeper than I wanted to go, even though that's the bare bones of what is in your syllabus. And I'm going to repost that with those learning outcomes and objectives are. And the course themes. I'm going to repost the syllabus with that in there shortly, and you will get your first readings along with the film, The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey. And don't be stumped by, you know, Spencer Wells' little pink self. Just being real, he is pink and very blonde. We're not there for that. We are utilizing him, okay, for the information, the science of qualifying the human presence in migratory pattern, right? We're not, and we'll talk about him to the extent that, yes, there's some things that he says in there that are certainly not true. There's some things that are in there in the film that are part and parcel of his position in the world, like saying Europeans are responsible for science. What a lie. Europeans only been here 7,000 to 8,000 years. African people, let me tell you, we're the first scientists, the first doctors. And if anybody want to dispute that, go to your local museum, anywhere where Europeans have pulled our bodies out of temples in ancient Kemet, in Ethiopia, and what is the Sudan, okay? We had the capability, scientific capability to preserve our bodies, not for 100 years or 200 years, but for 5,000 years and counting. Are you serious? Nobody taught us science, okay? DNA is a new thing that maybe they can claim some, patent on, but masters of science, they are not, okay? They are not. So ignore him on that level. He is ignorant in that way. We're here to see him map the DNA and to see the attitudes of people as he goes to the various groups around the world and says, do you understand that your origin is Africa? We want to see those reactions, all right? Because those reactions are the reactions we're dealing with in the world that manifests as white supremacy and culture and racism, all right? But we also watch the film to fortify all of you who need to, one, learn for the first time, and those of you who need to be reaffirmed in the understanding that human is African, first and foremost, not second, not third, not recently, first. Okay, and our natural characteristic, yes, is blackness. It is manifesting melanin. That is a normal human, African human characteristic, right? These people would produce a racial pathology called racism and race that identifies people by physical appearance, right? And identify what is typically human as black, right? White, black, all of these things, okay? Race is a new thing. Race is not real. Race is a social construct, okay? It is not a scientific, it is not a biological reality, okay? So that's why we utilize the film, The Journey of Man, a Genetic Odyssey, that I'm going to place in our group, along with our first readings on the history of Pan-Africanism, recreating the moment that the word Pan-Africanism is used for the first time, but not the first time Pan-Africanism is experienced, okay? So I'm going to leave it there. I'll look at some of your comments. I could, as you'll learn about me, I could go on literally for 10 hours on this very topic, but we don't have the time, okay? So yes, Ivan Van Sertima got it, yes. They came before Columbus. So the people who are considered the indigenous people of the Americas actually migrated across the Barren Straits into the Americas, down into Canada and North America, South and Central America. Okay, so that's how they get there. So, there's a lot of people now talking about, oh, African people in America, you're not African. Black people in America, you're not African, you're Native American. No, it's the other way around. Native Americans are African. There are Africans who migrated out of Africa through the Barren Strait, up into Asia, branched off, went up through the Barren Straits, across into the Americas, and been there for about 10 to 40,000 years, okay? In which case they are physically the manifestation of their environment, but they did not originate there. No human being, no Homo sapiens sapien, right? Which is a particular hominid, came out of any other part of the world but Africa. Africa is the home, is the house of humanity. Now, don't get me wrong, there were other hominids. And when you say that your origins as a human being are not in Africa, you are actually in effect arguing that you are some other kind of hominid. The modern human comes from only one place on earth. That is the African continent. For those who say that's not the case for them, as it goes back and back and back and back, thousands of years, then our next question is not to say, hey, what's wrong with you? Next question is, what are you scientifically? Are you Homo sapien? Are you the modern human? And that is the scientific term, right? So that's where we're coming from with bringing this hard science into the discourse and raising all of our boats to the understanding, raising us all up to the same understanding, but we have a working understanding that there is no dispute about the origin of humanity. To be human means to be African first and for most of our time on this earth. Period. Scientific fact. Not up for debate at this point. And yes, there are many people who hate it, right? Asian geneticists tried to connect the people to Homo erectus just to say they weren't from Africa. The European has always been trying to figure out like how they can be disconnected from that. Listen, you do all the DNA you want to do, it's going to bring you right back to the African continent, right? And so you need to be armed with that and understanding that, fortified in that understanding that we are the humans, not just human, right? And our natural characteristic as it is in a racialized world is, yes, to manifest melanin, and therefore we are identifiably Black. Simple as that. So yes, I mean, Sertima is one of them. African Negroes are equally not coming forth, right, to preserve the prehistoric aspects of Africa. Of course, exactly. No, listen, Africa is colonized, right? That's what neocolonialism did to us. And they've always fully engaged when it comes to Africa. I don't know, Roland Owusu, and they're always fully engaged when it comes to Africa. I don't know. But that was part of another statement. They found it hard to come out in support of Gaddafi because the West was fully, of course, yes, Gaddafi did too much for Africa. He had his contradictions, but he did too many concrete things for Africa, for him to survive in an anti-African world. Blacks are, yes, of course. And so this is part of what we address here. How to struggle, because we spend all day, every day trying to prove to other people that we're not all these negative things, but we don't spend any time working on our unity. Do you get what I'm saying? With each other. Okay, we spend, all our time proving to white and other people that we can work for them to their benefit, that we can advance their interests. We are smarter than this, that, the other. Toni Morrison was a wonderful proponent of this idea. She said, white supremacy and culture, racism, it steals our time, right? They say we don't have any culture. They say we don't have any, literature. We spend 20 years trying to prove to them that we do. Well, no, we're not going to spend 20 years trying to prove anything to people who are interested in eradicating and destroying our humanity and our lives. We're going to spend our 20 years working on the unity that will insulate us and protect us from people who think things like that. Got it? That's what we're here to do. Yes, the world should have supported Gaddafi. Yes, the Chinese are a huge issue. And so just apply everything, because I don't know, the world over. That's why the documentary I'm going to post is important, because it doesn't go deep into the Asian world. It does in terms of like India and Australia. I don't know if, it goes into, Asia to a certain extent. However, yes, the Chinese, Asia, have a strong anti-African racist streak, right? And so their presence in Africa should be looked upon with an understanding of that, okay? It's like Dr. Clark said, we have no friends, okay? We got to work on being each other's friends. That's why we're here to work on Pan-Africanist thinking, ideology, both theory and practice, not just thinking that way, because it's not about a party, about acting that way, right? Everywhere we are, right? So, the Chinese are going to do as much damage, if not more, than European imperialism did in Africa. We're gonna achieve African unity, Roland. We're gonna achieve it. and I get what you're saying. but we're gonna struggle. So everybody, every skin folk ain't kinfolk, right? Some people we know work against the best interests of African people. And part of white supremacy and culture, what it does is it teaches Africans to go against our best interests, our collective best interests. Here, what we do here is I teach you how to unlearn that. I educate you out of that. That's what we are here to do. Educate you out of going against your best interests or our collective best interests. And that takes training of the mind, training of the thinking, okay? Training of the behavior, ability to identify the proper behavior, okay? So, yeah, we are still going through systemic slavery, so, you know, in so many ways. We think the little paycheck helps, but, you know, there are so many ways, so many things about modern society that mimic our bondage. Absolutely. Who is this? Nicole, absolutely. Everywhere we are, be it our bodies, our locations, is an extraction site for everybody else to benefit from and for us to benefit the least from, right? But, you know, we give credit where credit is due. I think the Congo right now is in the process of letting some European nations know you won't be mining in the Congo. And that's a positive thing, you know? Yeah, of course. I agree with you, Chester. Unification is elusive to us. But we also have to understand the power in the masses. When people, individuals, neo-colonial figures do not serve our best interests, then we know we need to remove them. Listen, let me just say this. Yes, Roland, this is right. But why is the African person willing to oppress another African person for the benefit of white supremacy and white individuals? Why? Right? It's in our heads, right? You fix this, you fix this, you fix it all, right? You fix the thinking. That's right. All skin folk ain't kinfolk, Nicole, you're right. Absolutely. Okay, Ayo. Let me. All right, somebody at NEPCOM. Absolutely, we have to reinforce our children. So most of you just have statements. Hello, Hubert, Ofori. Hello, Happy New Year to you too. Okay, so I think I got everybody as far as that's concerned. But you know, to be continued. I'm going to do one of my New Year's resolutions is to do even better in terms of dialoguing inside the groups for I Love Black People and doing more to prompt you here. And so we'll be dialoguing during the course of the week. I post the readings on Monday, and then on, you know, you'll read them, and during the course of the week, I'll sort of prompt you with regard to the reading. Yes, I agree. Therefore, once the contrary force identified, immediately began the application. Absolutely, Brian Parks. Yes. Yes, absolutely. We can undo. So that's what ideological training can do for someone. We can undo, right? the impression on our minds. We can undo it, but it also, we are a people who are slow to understand that everything we do is rooted in ideology, is rooted in a certain thinking, right? Almost everything is just that way. You have a thought and then you act. Well, how about if we reverse the thought? So you're right on. No struggle for liberation took place without deep ideological training. Okay, and this is why we're in the course of this study, in this seminar, we will study the liberation struggles, study the philosophy and position of people who were at the helm of some of our liberation struggles on the continent and otherwise, right? We study the thinking so that we know we have to train our minds. Our minds is, you know, that's like the key to everything. All right, the mind is everything. I'll leave it there because, you know, I've never met ugly people, but yes, what can happen and go on in the mind can be quite ugly. And this is why we have to control that, right? And we can't let what's in our minds be placed there or be the product of what is produced and placed in our minds by other people. That's what's like white supremacy and culture does. Right? That's why we have a raging fight right now in the United States around this whole thing about critical race theory and all of this nonsense. Like, really? You want to erase history? Right. But there's people like myself and others, we're not going to allow that to happen. Okay. Everywhere we go, we're going to, you know, incite the truth. We're going to tell the truth about the history. So we're, you know, nobody's going for that. Nobody with sense is going for that anyway. Right, exactly. But see, well, the way we have to do it is that our home has to be the first classroom, right? Don't let your children go outside your house unfortified. Our homes are our first classrooms. You know, and then we have out here, we have things like Black colleges, but they're not always all together because there's different types of Black colleges, right? So side note, one of the things, I'll just tell you one thing about me before I go. I didn't get into a whole bio or whatever, which I seldom do that, but one of the things you'll learn about me in the course of the study or course of the seminars that I'm a Tuskegee alumni. I come from an institution called Tuskegee University that was built by African people who survived and defeated the institution of slavery, and built an institution that was the conception or the concept of a man who survived the institution of slavery and had one simple request after organizing some Black people in that county to vote. He had one simple request, which was to have a school for his people. And so I come from an institution where, you know, we believe independence through industry. I was always a scholar in the sense that I was a student of history at Tuskegee University, which is, like I said, a historically Black college produced by African people for African people, not like some of the others. As Tuskegee, I just did something with my Tuskegee alumni, and we always like to say we're different, and not to be better. Different in the sense that white folks didn't create our school and for us to learn what they wanted us to learn. We created our school, right? Our school, our institution was built by our hands, for us, by us, okay? But then we have a leadership that people may know, someone named Booker T. Washington, who raised the institution to be what he was. And he was a shrewd negotiator, wore the mask. Nobody wore the mask better. At a very dangerous time in this country, not like it's not dangerous anymore. It's still very dangerous here in America. But he did it best and was able and never lost his way home. Whatever he got, begged, borrowed, or stole from the rest of the world, he brought back to us, African people in Tuskegee. So, you know, but anyway, my point is that our education about who we are, it needs to start in our home. Period. Nobody needs to teach us. So we've got to engage in self-education and liberating ourselves mentally right? Through education, right? When you send your children out disarmed about who they are and allow someone else to tell them who they are, we've already lost. Right, we have already lost. Okay, so I've got to run because I have gone over time, seriously over time, and I didn't plan to. Thank you all very much, Nicole, Brian, everybody. I see you all in here. Yes, they have been brilliant chess masters, right? Yeah, exactly. Thank you all for dedicating yourself to doing this work. I love Black people and agreeing to engage on your Saturday, because you know, it is necessary work, but not everybody does it. So we appreciate you, and everybody, all the best in the new year. So this is our first session for the new year. That's like a big deal. So I will see you next week, and the readings will, and the film will be posted Monday. Every Monday evening, you'll see the readings go in, and then we'll start, you know, dialoguing on the readings and materials. Okay. All right. So I will see you all in the group. All right. All right. I am because we are.
I am
Peace.
because we are. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
For telling that.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for being with us.
Thank you.
All right. Goodbye. Enjoy the rest of your day and good evening. Thank you all. I am because we are. Thank you. Goodbye.